What's up, everybody? Welcome aboard to Bubba's Bottom Line, our weekly edition. And of course, markets suck, not much going on. In the meantime, we're seeing a lot of interesting factors. And if we take a look back at last week, we saw that basically markets tried to work higher, made all-time record highs again. Of course, because we all know that the economy and the stock markets have nothing to do with each other. So let's never confuse one with the other. Stock market, economy are not related. Now, that's one of the things I find problematic. When I listen to the pundits continue to chirp up about the stock market, very few of the middle class are actually that deeply involved, other than maybe through an IRA or a 401k or whatever, but for general, that's not where their number one source is. So they're really not benefiting as much as we like to believe. And of course, this is continuing to make the rich richer and of course, eliminate and shrink the overall middle class. But so as we look back at last week, what we saw was quiet markets. The VIX, the volatility index, made another brand new record low. Complacency is upon us. And of course, we call this the architecture of our downfall. You know, anytime you get too complacent, only bad things can then happen from there. And again, we're not predicting that it's going to break tomorrow or any other day. I'm just saying that historically, these things happen. And of course, those who fail to understand history are doomed to repeat it. And of course, I think that will be another example that we'll be seeing here shortly. You know, when, I don't know. I can't answer the question. But I think that, you know, if you start to weigh and look at what's going on here, and if you want to start, you can pick a place, any place. Pick a spot, any spot. So we can just start with the idiocy of the Federal Reserve. Let's start there. That's one of my favorite subjects anyways. If the Fed is still searching for that magic inflation, that magic way to stick it up our fill in the blank, then what's the problem? They've done everything in their power and above. They have totally destructed the entire free market system. They have run this legalized Ponzi scheme for now, well, many will say 104 years, but even we just say it was for the last 10, all right? They've run this with what result? Well, I don't know. Why don't we take a look back and see? So the big rave right now is corporate earnings, and they are good. And I can't say that they're not good. They are very good. But how are they growing? What are those corporate earnings? Well, let's see. Companies are getting smaller. They're contracting. They're hiring less people. They're firing more people. They're cutting down on the benefits they pay out. So yes, they are making enormous profits. Now, if we look at that compared to who it benefits, how many or what percentage of the middle class does that program help? And the answer would be zero, because we aren't seeing the jobs. We don't have the capital expenditures, or what they call CapEx spending. We're not seeing the research. We're not seeing the jobs. So yes, the CEOs and the corporation is getting rich. The shareholders that are participating are making money. But the trickle-down theory of this stupid cheap money policy is once again showed how dumb it is, because it can't work. Because the wealthy will not let it work, because they want to abscond all the money themselves. And I can't blame them. I'm not mad at them. So that's part one of these great earnings. So we have no growth. We're not hiring. So now we'll get our jobs report this Friday, and of course, I'm sure it'll be a big number. And they'll say, yeah, we're at full employment. Everything is great. All right, well, okay, I say to you that if we're so great, why don't we have spending money? Why can't we see growth in other areas? Why are restaurants starting to lose steam? Why are people, listen, if you're going out to dinner less, it means you have less to spend, okay? Because the money that we spend to do things of like a luxury or whatever are done because of we feel that we have money or that we feel that we're getting in a better shape. So, over the last couple of weeks, I do a lot of research and a lot of individual things, and I've been to restaurants and I ask, what's going on? And they go, well, we're not getting as much business. And the other thing, when you go into a lot of these restaurants, what are you seeing? You're seeing a lot of the older generation, the retirees. I mean, they're really old. It's amazing when you go into a restaurant and the average age is dead. I mean, face it. When you're going in and the average age in the restaurant is 75 years old, well, that is not very good as a client base going forward, all right? And you're not bringing in the younger. Okay, why? Well, because A, people don't have the money to spend. It's a very simple model. I mean, again, I don't understand why we don't understand, in general, why it's such a simple model to create. But again, when you continue to take away from the middle class, you continue to create problems. So now you tie in the Fed's easy money policy. And easy money is great, but now you're a bank, right? Name a bank, JP Morgan Chase, okay? Now, you can lend money to me, and I can help build my business. And maybe I can hire a few employees and do all these nice things and create some stimulation. Or you can say, screw you, we're not going to lend you any money. You don't qualify. You're not one of the 1%ers. So you're going to have to, if you want money, you're going to have to borrow it off of your credit card. So now, I can go buy, I can try to borrow it at 4%, or I can get the old shaft, which would be expected because a bank is the only place that will lend you when you don't need it. And I can go borrow off my credit card if I choose to. So instead of paying 4%, now I'm paying somewhere between some usury rate between 11 and 20%. Well, I can't make money on those rates. Remember, one of the things we talk about from any standpoint is if your expense out triggers the money you're taking in, you can't do the deal. It doesn't work out right. It's the same as socialism. You cannot spend more than you make. It never seems to work out well. Now, kind of like the golf analogy is, 99% of the putts that don't get to the hole don't go in the hole. Well, if you take this whole model, okay, and you say, okay, we don't have that. You don't get true spending. You can't borrow, and of course, that is the reason why many of these subprime lender type places that are cheering up, Prosper, Cabbage, any of them. Again, I'm not picking on one. I like their model. They're using other people's money to lend money. It's peer-to-peer lending, it's known as, and they're creating this little commission for themselves in between. They take no exposure. In the meantime, they suck you in to fill out for that low rate, but in the end up you're paying 12 or 15%. And again, you can't, at the current state, you can't make on those rates, right? But that's why banks don't want to lend. Why? Because let you pay on your credit card. Let you pay those usury rates. Why? I know you're going to go there. We can see by the credit card sales. We can see by the credit card transactions that that's what's happening. So that creates another problem. So there's no money accessible anyway, so what good is the Fed? Now then, of course, then we talk about their desire for inflation. Well, again, inflation is not something that is planned, okay? It's not like Planned Parenthood. It's not like planning your business or making a model. It's something that should happen naturally based on the simple equation of supply and demand, all right? Well, if there's too much supply and not enough demand, then prices should be lower. If there's more demand than supply, then prices should be higher. But it should not be something that the Fed should be worried about because it's something that should happen naturally. But when you totally destruct and interfere with an economy, if you ever saw the movie Back to the Future, right, with Michael J. Fox and whatever the nut's name is, I like him a lot. He's played on Taxi, but whatever, anyway, it doesn't matter. Lloyd is his name. In the meantime, okay, if you screw with the future, with what you're doing, or in the past, things will change. So because of all the Fed's finagling, they have changed the model. There is no need to try to force inflation, because if there's not a true supply-demand model, then inflation is not going to come anyways. So you can only rip off your people for so long trying to create this phony inflation that does not exist. Why doesn't it exist? Because the actions of the Fed, the actions of the government have totally destructed the free market system. It's very simple. If we can't get small business to open businesses, then we can't get hiring of new employees. You don't get hiring of new employees, you don't see expansion, you don't see spending, which collapses the system and creates the deflationary model. Now, I'm not an economist, okay? I didn't study to be one. Unfortunately, to be able to explain the ignorance of the people that are in charge, I had to bring it down to a level that everybody could simply look and understand. It's ridiculous. The entire model of what they're talking about is stupid. I don't even want to jimmy around, try to fool around, try to be politically correct, because I don't really care. It's stupid, all right? You cannot continue to make the rich richer and continue to on the middle class, all right? You can't do it. It does not work. It's a flawed model, which nobody seems to understand, because the stock market's at record highs. And I have no problem with the stock market record highs. Listen, I'm long equities. I don't care. I'm thrilled. But at the end of the day, it's not the way it should be. And we're just continuing to build this monster house of cards. Now, we all remember the house of cards theory, right? When you build it when you were a kid, you build them in the house, you have these big stacks, and the next thing you know, somebody would fart, and all the house would come tumbling down. Well, what do you think is going to happen here? Do you think that this is any different? Do you think that the new markets we talk about are any different than the old markets? Everything since the beginning of time is gone off of a supply and a demand model. In my book, I wrote about cavemen, right? One had land that was fruitful and didn't have beef. The other had beef but no land. Their land was not fruitful, so they had to make a trade so they could both benefit. We don't get that right now. That's the bigger issues here. So the whole system is melting down. Nobody understands it. Well, I shouldn't say that. People understand it, but again, if you're among the rich that are collecting, do you care? Okay? No, you don't. You're happy just to keep taking the money. Great wealth is always built in the times of greatest oppression. Okay. So they're not concerned. The middle class are stuck. They've got to work 92 jobs just to maybe get through the week. So we'll have more, but right now we're going to step out here for a break. This is Bubba's Bottom Line, Todd Bubba Horwitz, and of course, don't forget to get the Bubba Show every day, 2 to 3 Eastern Time, brought to you on libertytalk.fm. That's where we get to talk specifics of markets on a daily basis and get some great guests. And of course, this weekend, Tuesday, August the 1st, we're going to have Adam Johnson. Used to be at Bloomberg, now owns an advisory service, and we're going to interview him on Tuesday. So, make sure you step up and you listen to the show. In the meantime, you can get that at libertytalk.fm. This is Bubba's Bottom Line, Real Markets, Real People. We'll be right back after the break with more. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line, and of course, Todd Bubba Horwitz with you. And as we continue to rant and rave on the problems that we're having, and again, it's not that I want to bitch. I do like to bitch a little bit. I don't complain. It's kind of who I am. I like to, lay it out, but I think I can usually back up my bitching with a lot of facts. And just, one quick story, a little off the business topic, but I think business related. I go to the skin doctor the other day, and, I try to make always the first appointment. In fact, once I get in tight with a doctor, I typically request that they meet me before the market's open, and not before the market's open, before the office opens, and I get in and out. I don't have to deal with the waiting. But, obviously many won't do that. So now I'm down to getting them to come in and, get the first appointment. So I wait whatever, how long I have to wait. So I get the first appointment. So Friday, I go to my skin doctor, and I check in on there. My appointment's at 8:15. I get there 20 minutes early. I'm waiting. And I see all these people filling out new forms and stuff, and they don't announce me to fill out new forms. I go, it's okay. Not me, then I don't have to do it. So now my appointment time comes at 8:15. Now I'm getting a little bit irritated because I'm not called in yet. It's 8:20. And then at 8:22, one of the nurses says, oh, Todd Horwitz, you need to fill out these. I said, I do. Right? I ain't filling out anything. I said, either you're taking me now or I'm getting out of here. I said, this is the dumbest system I've ever seen. I've been sitting here for 25 minutes waiting. I could have filled out all these paperwork. I said, you sent me 3 emails and 3 texts reminding me of my appointment. Why didn't you tell me you had new paperwork I had to fill out? You want me to do it now after my appointment time and you're already running late? So the bottom line is, I'm not a quiet, shy, retiring type. I'm not a little violet that crumbles up. I get pretty aggressive. And of course, then everybody in the office starts going, yeah, he's right, he's telling her. In the meantime, they get me in and I go to my doctor. I said, what are you, nuts? What the hell's going on here? And she says, I know. I said, look, I don't care. I'll quit you and go somewhere else. That ain't that big a deal to me. I said, you better, for your own self, you're going to lose everybody because nobody can take this crap you're putting out here. And so we agreed. But anyways, back on topic. Goldman Sachs is talking about inflation. Now, again, remember this. Big banks have an axe to grind, and they have an edge to try to create for their own investments. So whatever they say, you always got to take with a grain of salt, okay? But if we look back at some of the other information, GDP, we continue to hear how much growth we're going to have. And I go, really, where's the growth going to come from? Can anybody tell me, and please email me at bubba@bubbatrading.com if you know, can anybody tell me where the growth is possibly going to come from? If companies are not spending money to research, if companies are not expanding their employee base, where do we think growth is going to come back from? Is it going to be magic? Is it going to be like Jack and the Beanstalk? We're going to get some magic beans? I mean, you can't get growth unless you start to create. Now, we had one quarter in the last 10 years, it was, I think, 3%. And that was based on a huge supply of soybeans that were shipped. But at the end of the day, when's the last time? We get 2.6, whip-de-doo. In the meantime, they revised and downgraded the first quarter GDP. We're not going to get growth here. This is a facade. This is imaginary. This is the house of cards we keep talking about. That you continue to wish and hope that something's going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's a bunch of crap. There's no way you're going to see it happen because the whole setup is not designed to do that. The whole setup is for the Fed to continue to create BS and garbage and let the rich continue to get their paycheck because they ain't helping the middle class. They're not helping the small business, which is why you continue to see small business closing up. Pretty damn simple, all right? But again, you have this manipulatory body that has full authority to run the largest legalized Ponzi scheme in history, and that's what you're going to get. In the meantime, you've got a stock market exploding to record highs on numbers, all right? These price to earnings ratios have never been seen since 2019-29. Now, again, I am not predicting that tomorrow is the next collapse. I'm just saying that valuations are ridiculous. You look at a stock like Boeing. Last week, Boeing reported earnings. You realize Boeing is up 40% in less than 3 months. And it was up 15% last Wednesday and Thursday. Now, big stocks like that, big solid companies, don't go up 15% in 2 days. They're not the internet, they're not the high flyers, and they're not the low capitalized companies. This is a big solid company that goes up 15% in 2 days. Can you imagine? Now again, that's great for them and it's great for their shareholders, but what propelled that? You got to think like underneath the surface. What brought that big buying spree on? And of course, it wasn't short covering. I think it was people that are chasing up the market. And they just can't get enough of it. I mean, it's amazing how fast some of these are going up. And again, The thinner stocks and Netflix, I can understand Netflix. I mean, listen, it's got a huge short float. It's got a lot going on in it. It certainly can fly back and forth. NVIDIA, any of those. But here's a Boeing. This is a staple, all right? That how can they get that kind of growth? Well, they don't. But in the meantime, here we have it, and here's a stock exploding to the next generation. Durable goods suck. Housing sucks. Yeah, you can hear about, oh, it'll be an increase in this and that. I go, BS. Come on, please. You can't borrow any money. Nobody can buy any houses. You can't borrow the money to get to the house. So are we really going to watch that? You know, it's totally a joke at everything that they try to spin for us, all right? Now, the number one warning sign that some will consider a major warning to the market is the sale of RVs. They're reaching record highs again, all right? So that's a sign because those people that can buy those are comfortable. So they're flitting away buying these expensive, couple $100,000 things. In the meantime, auto sales have now missed 5 months in a row. Inventories are mounting. Defaults are mounting. But let's celebrate. We got new highs, baby. Let's go. We're going to keep going up. And of course, that's the unfortunate attitude that we have in markets today is that nobody worries. Nobody cares. Why? Because the markets are never going down again. We might see Dow 1 billion. Who the hell knows? But at the end of the day, it comes back down to a simple model. The simple model is this. Eventually, the Fed runs out of their BS. Okay? Eventually, they can no longer provide. They cannot do much more destruction to the dollar. Have you noticed the dollar lately? At 15 or 16 month lows? Have you noticed what's going on here? Have you noticed that in Europe, you can't necessarily take your money out of the bank? Okay? There's some restrictions on how to get money out. Right? You think we've talked about this cashless society and this finagling? You think that the central banks don't have a plan behind this, a devious plan behind all their stupid policies? Again, it's hard to say stupid, but it is stupid. I have no other words to describe it. Maybe if I added a thesaurus here, I could find you better words, but those aren't my words. My words are, it's the dumbest, ignorant, stupid thing I've ever seen in my life that has absolutely no chance of working in the longer term. And my proof is more than anybody else's because the middle class is in dire straits. The middle class has never left a recession. And some guy said the other day that he sees a recession coming this year. I go, really? Did the middle class ever get out of recession? Look at Illinois, lowest wage growth in the last 10 years. And again, I know Illinois sucks, that's where I live. But that's not just here. If you eliminate a few of the states that are unbelievably hot right now, the general economy is in piss poor, pathetic condition. Listen to Zane, I forget his name, Zane, whatever he owns. He owns about 400 Applebee's in the New York area. He'll tell you. He's the perfect guy to look at. Moderate, middle-priced food at a restaurant, struggling. Now, I mean, they're not struggling, but they keep losing employees because they can't afford to replace them. They don't fire them, but as they quit, because in the restaurant business there's a huge turnover, he doesn't bring them back. So those are the things that, again, I worry about and I'm looking at, and I think that you should be watching. In the meantime, this is Bubba's Bottom Line, real markets, real people. We're going to step out here for a break and make sure to remind you that get the Bubba Show every single day, 2 to 3 Eastern Time at libertytalk.fm. We're going to step out here. We'll be right back with Bubba's commentary after the break. Bubba's Bottom Line, Todd Bubba Horwitz will be right back. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line, Todd Bubba Horwitz. And of course, just a quick reminder, the Bubba Show every day, 2 to 3 Eastern, libertytalk.fm. Check it out. Anyways, so obviously we've been following the politics, and my buddy, Anthony Scaramucci, got in as the communications director. And boy, I'll tell you, man, I don't know if you agree or disagree, and I'm not really quite sure yet, but you can hear he was letting the F-bombs fly through Twitter, and of course Priebus got fired, and Spicer's gone, and there's a whole big shake-up going on here. And Anthony kind of stepped over the line, but he's my guy, and I respect what he's trying to do. And again, he's trying to work on making the system better. And that's what I believe. In his heart, he wants to make America better, or as Trump says, make America great again. But you have so many problems that all of Anthony's and Trump's actions are probably going to waste because we can't get through the House and the Senate. John McCain comes off of his deathbed to vote once and then he votes no. Now, why he votes no, I don't know. Okay. I don't get it, but Trump was a big, he pushed on McCain and called him whatever he did. And of course, this is maybe a way of getting even. But I really have to ask you, and I have to wonder, when do the American people come first? Now, there's a very little known fact out there that the House and the Senate don't have Obamacare. They were given an exemption by President Obama that they have their own private health care. Okay? Now, I assure you that if they had Obamacare, we'd have a new healthcare system right now. But because they don't, if you remember our good old friend Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. What do they care? What do they care about Social Security? They have their own private Social Security or private pension. They don't have to worry about the failing of these things. That's the problem. And from my understanding, I do not know this for a fact, but from my understanding, the ruling that Obama made, also based on the Constitution, it is illegal for them to have their own private healthcare system, and they should be on Obamacare. If they're on Obamacare, they're going to make sure they get a new healthcare law passed. All right? This is how powerful the lobbyists are, and this is where we have a problem in our political system, where we've gotten away from what the intentions of the founding fathers was. You've got, not necessarily, you've got way too big government, we know that, but let's say it's not too big, but you've got lobbyists that are far too powerful. Because if they weren't, we would be able to have insurance fighting statewide, crossing state lines, which they can't do right now. Major problem. Right? We would have things going on that would be bringing down these costs, which we don't. Now, the Democrats whine and moan about how many people will lose their health care because of if we change Obamacare. And the facts are very simple. Very few would lose health care, but a lot of people will have the opportunity to opt out if they choose. And isn't that part of being an American, the freedom of choice? You don't want to be in the policy? Great. You want to take the chances that you get a terminal illness that's going to break you? It should be your choice. But they don't. And that's the biggest problem. So if I'm 25, healthy, do I want to pay for somebody who's got a pre-existing condition like me at 60? Okay? I wouldn't want to pay for it either. It's stupid. It doesn't make sense. And it needs to be run by the pool. If the United States government, with all their waste, would like to subsidize the pre-existing condition pool, that's great. Let them cut some of the other ridiculous benefits that they give away. If we would just simply cut the crap, okay, and cut the freebies that we give away to people that don't deserve them. Again, I'm all for, if you're really in dire straits and you need help, God bless. I'm willing to pay my fair share. But for many of the people that are collecting entitlements, disability, welfare, unemployment, food stamps, I'm going to say to you, and I don't know this for a fact again, but I will bet $1 million, okay, cash money, that at least 10 to 15% of the system is being collected by people that are getting it illegally, that shouldn't have it, that don't deserve it, and that are scamming the system. And I'll say that a small percentage of those getting it are illegal aliens, okay, that aren't even citizens of the United States, but they somehow manage to get a Social Security number to get that. All right? And I'll make that wager with anybody. All right? But again, we'll never be able to prove it, so it's more of a moot point. But the point is that that's my belief, and I know, I've seen people collecting these nice checks, driving nice cars, that got a pocket full of money anyways and don't really care, but they're scamming the system. And that's the problem, because we don't have a good track on what's going on. In the meantime, Trump is at a standstill because he's getting no help. He's got Scaramucci now that's going to try to do his best. Hopefully, they get past the bull, but again, I'm not real focused and confident that that's going to happen. I'm hoping it happens because, again, whether you like Trump or not, which I've said many times, I don't know what acting presidential is. What I know is I got a businessman who wants to make things better for everybody. And we seem to fight him at every turn. And again, you don't have to like him. The office of the president deserves the respect. And he's trying to do what he thinks is best for Americans. That's the bottom line. That's my bottom line. And that'll do it for today. This is Bubba's Bottom Line. As always, thank you so much for being here. Everybody have a great week trading, great week investing. We'll see you next time here on Bubba's Bottom Line. Todd, Bubba Horwitz. Thanks, everybody.